Welcome, kindred spirits, to a place of positivity, passion, and purpose. Welcome to our channel, where today's focus is all about 2004 Japanese Motorcycle Grand Prix. Let's get started. The 2004 Japanese Motorcycle Grand Prix was the 12th round of the 2004 MotoGP Championship. It took place on the weekend of September 2004 at the Twin Ring Motegi circuit. Now, let's dig deeper into MotoGP race report and unveil the hidden treasures it holds within. This race was most notable for Makoto Tameda's home victory starting from pole, as well as Nakano's third-place podium for Kawasaki and Burrow's climb up to 4th from 10th on the grid. One day before the race, on Saturday, Deijiro Kato's father presented 2 minibikes which will be sold this fall in Japan. This was done to commemorate his son, who died last year during the 2003 Japanese Grand Prix at the now-scrapped Suzuka circuit after a high-speed collision with the barriers at the Casio Triangle. After 11 rounds, Valentino Rossi is ahead of the rest with 209 points. Not far behind is Seat Gibana in second with 180 points, and third in the standings is Max Biaggi with 158 points. Home hero Makoto Tameda has given the Japanese fans something to get exciting for when he took pole position on Saturday with a time of. Close second is John Hopkins and third is Valentino Rossi. The second row of the grid consists out of Max Biaggi in 4th, Colin Edwards in 5th and Marco Melandri in 6th. All riders take off and do their usual warm-up lap before lining up in their respective grid slots. As the lights go out, it is Hopkins who initially gets the better start and looks to lead going into turn 1. However, it is Rossi manages to lunge ahead and leads going into the corner. As Hopkins turns in, he fails to spot Loris Caprese, who had a great start from 7th on the grid, and collides with him as Caprese loses the front and rear. This causes a chain reaction, bringing down Kenny Roberts Jr., Max Biaggi and Nicky Hayden with them. 6 riders had now been eliminated on the opening lap, but Tameda, who had a bad start and thus lost multiple positions, was not one of the casualties. The marshals run up to the stranded riders as the dust settles, revealing that all the riders except for Hayden had gone down. Hayden was stuck in the gravel. Biaggi is also stuck, the marshals pushing his bike as a wounded Hopkins lies injured in the gravel. Caprese has not moved since the incident and has been put on a stretcher, 2 of the marshals lifting him up to bring him to the medical center. Rossi meanwhile has been able to open up a gap to second-place Tameda already. However, he quickly closes this entering turn 11, pursuing Rossi for the remainder of the lap. Also at the straight before turn 11, Seat Gibana tries to pass Norifumi Abe by going up his inside, failing and having to stay behind him for the time being. On lap 2, the top 6 is as follows: Rossi, Tameda, Melandri, Shinya Nakano, Abe and Gibana. Tameda has opened up a big gap to third-place Melandri, who himself is coming under pressure from Nakano. At turn 11, Tameda looks to be passing Rossi but stays behind for the time being. Lap 3 and Tameda is still right behind Rossi, biding his time and not yet making a move. Behind him, Melandri is still being followed by Nakano, Abe, Gibana and Carlos Checa. On lap 4, Tameda sets the fastest lap of the race. Abe has overtaken Nakano for 4th before turn 9. Nakano then tries to retake the position at the end of the straight coming up to turn 11, deciding to stay behind for the time being. Lap 5 and Tameda sets another fastest lap of the race. Checa is now losing touch with the back of Gibana while Tameda is still all over the rear of Rossi. Exiting turn 11, Nakano's exhaust started to blow some light smoke, but it does not indicate an engine problem. On lap 6, Tameda is still all over the rear of Rossi. At the end of the straight leading up to turn 11, he makes the move, going side by side with Rossi and getting ahead upon entry. Lap 7 and Tameda now leads his home Grand Prix, Rossi still right behind him and ready to strike if he makes a mistake, however. At turn 10, Rossi goes in a bit too deep and runs wide, allowing Tameda to open up a slight gap. On lap 8, Tamada is now increasing his gap slightly. His teammate further back Abe is now coming under pressure from Nakano, however. Exiting turn 11, he manages to get closer again. Lap 9 and Rossi is still close to Tamada. Torukawa has crashed out of the race, the Japanese rider walking away unhurt and disappointed as the marshals recover his bike. On lap 10, it is revealed that Caprese, who was taken away by stretcher earlier in the race, has a small fracture in his foot, as well as a minor concussion. Hopkins has minor bruises and a dislocated elbow for Robert Jr. Troy Bayliss has now closed right up to Checker, then Abe suddenly slows down as a mechanical problem ends his good run in 4th, the Japanese shaking his head. This promotes Melandri to 3rd, Nakano to 4th, Jibuna to 5th and Checker to 6th. At the straight before turn 11, Bayliss has a look up the inside of Checker, deciding better of it and staying behind for now. Behind Bayliss, Alex Burrows has also closed the gap and is now behind Bayliss in 8th. Lap 11 and Tamada's gap back to Rossi is 0.594 seconds. The top 6 is as follows: Tamada, Rossi, Melandri, Nakano, Jibuna and Checker. Abe enters the pits to retire his bike, visibly shaking his head in disappointment. At the straight coming up to turn 4, Bayliss goes alongside Checker and passes him for 6th, sliding his Marlboro Ducati into the corner and just hanging on. On lap 12, the halfway point of the race, Burrows goes side by side with Checker at the start-finish straight, passing the Spaniard and taking 7th from him. In Sector 2, the gap Tamada has to Rossi is 1.116 seconds, which increases to 1.139 seconds in Sector 3. Lap 13 and Tamada continues to slowly extend his lead over Rossi. No overtakes happened at the front. On lap 14, Nakano has closed up on Melandri, shadowing the Italian for 3rd. Behind them, Bayliss has closed up on Jibuna for 5th, Burrows closing up on the duo as well. Lap 15 and Bayliss has gotten past Jibuna. He goes up the inside of the Spaniard at the straight heading towards turn 4, promoting him up to 5th position. Burrows has also caught up with a now struggling Jibuna. On lap 16, Tamada's gap back to Rossi is now 2.393 seconds. At the end of the straight, heading up to turn 4, Burrows passes Jibuna by lunging up his inside and outbraking him entering the corner, moving him up to 6th place. The Brazilian is now catching up with Bayliss. Lap 17 and Tamada is still in front, slowly extending his lead still. The top 6 is as follows: Tamada, Rossi, Melandri, Nakano, Bayliss and Burrows. No overtakes happened at the front. On lap 18, Nakano is still behind Melandri, shadowing him and waiting for the right moment to strike. Burrows is doing likewise behind Bayliss. Jibuna behind them is still struggling down in 7th place. Lap 19 and Nakano is now right behind Melandri. Exiting turn 4, he tries to pass Melandri on the outside, heading into turn 5, the Italian blocking him off and preventing him from getting by. At the straight heading up to turn 11, Nakano goes side by side and passes Melandri for 3rd, who then does a switchback move and tries to retake the position. However, he runs wide, loses momentum exiting the corner and hands Nakano the position at last, the Kawasaki section of fans on the grandstands going wild after he does so. On lap 20, the top 6 is as follows: Tamada, Rossi, Nakano, Melandri, Bayliss and Burrows. At the front, Tamada has pulled a significant gap back to Rossi by now. Bayliss has gone down, the rider angrily walking away from the crash site as a marshal guides him off the circuit. Lap 21 and Tamada's gap back to Rossi is now 4.079 seconds. Burrows has also passed Melandri by diving down his inside at turn 7, promoting him to 4th. On lap 22, Burrows now pulls away from the Italian and is going after 3rd place Nakano for the podium. Tamada's gap back to Rossi is now 4.672 seconds. Lap 23, the penultimate lap, and the top 6 is as follows: Tamada, Rossi, Nakano, Burrows, Melandri and Jibuna. Oros has not been able to get much closer to Nakano so far. The last lap 24 has begun and Tamada is still out in front, with Rossi a distant second. The Japanese fans at the Camel Honda booth go wild as Tamada approaches the last set of corners and heads onto the start-finish straight, the Japanese briefly looking behind him before doing a wheelie and crossing the line to win the race, his second race win of the season and his MotoGP career. Rossi finishes second and Nakano, on the Kawasaki, finishes a sensational third for the young constructor. On the parade lap back to park firm, Rossi shakes hands with Tamada while still on the bike, congratulating him on his win. The marshals also wave their flags and congratulate all the riders as well. Tamada celebrates by putting his arms up in the air to signal victory. The fans in the grandstand put up a big banner of the Camel Honda team to celebrate Tamada's and the team's victory. Tamada waves at the crowd and a rider shakes his hand as congratulations, then pulls another wheelie in joy. Nakano waves the Kawasaki flag, celebrating his and the team's first podium in the Premier class since their return in 2002. The Kawasaki stand also goes wild, waving flags in salute of Nakano and the team. Rossi also celebrates, doing a wheelie at the straight before turn 11 as well, briefly waving at the crowd. Tamada meanwhile is still happily waving at the crowd, Rossi doing likewise, then pulling right to stop his bike at the barrier. Tamada stops at the straight before turn 11, two Japanese fans invading the track to run up to him and give him the Japanese flag. The fans then run off the circuit, Tamada riding again and proudly displaying the Japanese flag for everyone to see. He waves his arms around a bit more before going under the tunnel and heading onto the start-finish straight. Rossi is the first one to arrive to park firm, unbuckling his helmet and waving to the camera. Tamada also heads to the pits and park firm, then gets greeted cheerfully by his crew members, one hugging him and the other holding the Japanese flag. Tamada then hugs his other crew member also before running up to his team and celebrating with them. Nakano also arrives at park firm, stepping off his bike with the Kawasaki flag still in his hand. One of his crew members hugs him, then another one does so as well, dragging him to the rest of the team to celebrate third place. Tamada is now being interviewed by Japanese television. The riders head up to the podium, the first one being Nakano, who gets a very warm welcome as the Japanese fans clap and cheer loudly for him. Second is Rossi, who also gets a warm welcome from the fans. Rossi then shakes hands with Nakano. Then Tamada is announced, sending the home fans into a frenzy, the air horns blowing and the cheers being heard loudly. He shakes hands with Rossi and Nakano, then steps onto the podium. Ikuo Shimizu, then president of the Twin Ring Motegi, hands out third place trophy to Nakano, the fans clapping loudly as he receives it. Next up is Rossi, who also gets a loud applause as he lifts his trophy, and then Martin Griffiths, then Vice President Marketing Asia of Japan Tobacco International, hands Tamada the winner's trophy. He happily receives it and lifts it up, the fans loudly cheering and blowing their air horns as a result. The Japanese nation anthem plays for Tamada, the fans once again cheering loudly once it stops. The girls on the podium hand the riders the champagne, Rossi then cheekily spraying one of them as the other two spray into the crowd, then each other. Once they are done, they put the champagne down and pose for the group photo. Tamada then thanks the fans in a short interview on the podium. Rossi's second place, Jubina's sixth place and Biaggi's back-to-back DNF now means that Rossi extends his lead in the championship. The Doctor leads the title hunt with 229 points, followed by Jubina with 190 points and Biaggi, still stuck in 158 points. As we progress, let's zoom in on 125 classification and examine its role in shaping our overall narrative. The race, scheduled to be run for 21 laps, was stopped after 8 full laps due to an accident. It was later restarted for the remaining 13 laps, with the grid determined by the running order before the suspension. The second part of the race determined the final result. Get ready for a thought-provoking discussion as we delve into championship standings after the race Motegi and its impact on our understanding. Championship standings after the race Motegi. Below are the standings for the top 5 riders and constructors after round 12 has concluded. Riders' Championship standings. Constructors' Championship standings. Note, only the top 5 positions are included for both sets of standings. I appreciate your time and I'm grateful for every like, comment, and share.